The Grand Council chamber of the Vexen Empire stretched wider than any Earth stadium. Its crystal walls reflected the light of 3 artificial suns, casting rainbow patterns across thousands of alien delegates. At the center of it all, Admiral Krex stood tall on his 4 legs, his purple scales gleaming with confidence. The humans request military alliance status. His translator boomed across the chamber. The announcement was met with a wave of clicking sounds, the universal sign of laughter among the Vexens. Commander Rita stood alone at the visitors' platform, her military uniform looking plain compared to the energy shields and plasma armor surrounding her. She was humanity's representative, sent here with hope. That hope was dying fast. "Show us your weapons, human," Krex commanded, his 6 eyes focusing on her with amusement. "Let us see what Earth considers military might." Rita activated her holographic display. Images of tanks, jets, and missiles appeared in the air. The laughter grew louder. One delegate, a blob-like creature from the gel system, actually rolled off its seat in amusement. "Chemical explosives?" Krex said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Metal projectiles? This is what humans bring to the galactic stage?" He gestured. To his aide, who activated their own display, a single Vexen warrior appeared, covered in shields that could stop a nuclear blast. "One of our soldiers could destroy your entire army." "Admiral," Rita said calmly, though her hands clenched behind her back, "you judge us by the weapons you can see. But humans have survived not through superior technology, but through precision and patience." "Precision?" Krex laughed. "Your bullets bounce off our basic civilian shields. Your bombs are fireworks to us. What precision matters when you cannot even scratch us?" The Council agreed loudly. The Vexens had conquered 40 systems. They had weapons that could crack moons in half. What could these humans, who still used chemical rockets, possibly offer? "Request denied," Krex announced. "Humans are classified as Level 2 species. You may trade with the Empire, but military partnership? Impossible. Come back when you discover real weapons, plasma cannons, antimatter bombs, something beyond these primitive tools." Rita picked up her datapad and turned to leave. At the doorway, she stopped. "Admiral, there's an old Earth saying, it's not the size of the gun, but where you point it." "More human nonsense." Krex waved her away. "Guards, escort the primitive." To her ship. As Rita walked through the massive corridors, alien species of all kinds pointed and whispered. News traveled fast in the capital. Humans had been rejected, labeled as primitives. Some felt pity. Most found it amusing. Back on her small diplomatic vessel, Rita opened a secure channel to Earth Command. General Tom appeared on screen, his weathered face expectant. "They said no," Rita reported. "They think we're a joke, sir. Chemical weapons and metal bullets don't impress them." Tom nodded slowly. "Did you leave the package?" "Yes, sir. Microscopic tracker, just like we planned. It's on the Admiral's ceremonial. Cape, good? How long before their military parade?" 3 days, sir. The whole Empire will be watching. They're celebrating their latest conquest." Tom leaned back in his chair. "Perfect. Time to show them that sometimes old-fashioned doesn't mean ineffective. Prepare the demonstration. We'll teach them why humans survived every predator, every disaster, every war on Earth." Rita looked out at the Vexen capital ship floating nearby. It was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that defied physics, but she smiled. These aliens had shields against energy weapons, armor against plasma, defenses against antimatter. They'd evolved past kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They'd forgotten that sometimes the simple solution was the best solution. "Sir," Rita said, "after this, they'll either respect us or declare war on us." "Then let's make sure they choose respect," Tom replied. "Send word to Sergeant Mike. Tell him the shot is approved. 1 bullet, Rita. We get one chance to change. Their minds. The screen went dark. Rita sat in her captain's chair, watching the Vexen ships patrol space like gods among the stars. In 3 days, they'd learn what humans had learned long ago. Technology was impressive. But skill? Skill was terrifying. 300 light years from the Vexen capital, Sergeant Mike floated in the dead of space. His modified suit was barely larger than a coffin, painted black and powered down to avoid detection. He'd been drifting for 6 hours, waiting. The rifle in his hands was nothing special by galactic standards. It was an old Earth model, upgraded slightly, but still firing traditional rounds. The aliens would laugh if they saw it. A chemical-powered projectile weapon in an age of plasma. Cannons seemed like bringing a stone to a laser fight. But Mike knew better. He'd studied the Vexen shields for months. They were designed to stop energy laser, plasma, antimatter. They bent space itself to deflect fast-moving particles. The faster something moved, the better the shields worked. It was brilliant. It was also their weakness. His earpiece crackled. Mike, this is Control. Package confirmed. Admiral Krex will be at coordinates sent. Parade begins in 72 hours. Copy that, Control. Beginning calculations. Mike activated his suit's minimal systems. The onboard computer started working. Distance, 8 million kilometers. Target speed, stationary during speech. Wind, none. It's space. Gravity wells, 14 minor influences to calculate. The bullet would take 19 hours to reach its target after firing. This was the shot no alien would attempt. They relied on instant weapons, lasers that moved at light speed, plasma that crossed distances in seconds. Nobody used bullets anymore, because space was too vast, too empty. Missing meant waiting hours to know you failed. But humans? Humans had been making impossible shots since they first threw stones at prey. This was just a longer throw. Mike's computer beeped. Calculation. Complete. He would need to fire in exactly 53 hours, 14 minutes, and 7 seconds. The bullet would drift through space, too slow to trigger shields, too small to detect, arriving just as Admiral Krex stood at the podium. He opened his ration pack, the last one. After this, either he'd be picked up as humanity's hero, or he'd die out here in the cold. Either way, history would remember this moment. Back in the Vexen capital, preparations for the parade continued. Ships from across the Empire arrived daily. The Gel delegates brought their living vessels, creatures that swam through space like whales. The Thorns brought their spike-covered dreadnoughts. Even the mysterious Void Touched sent a representative, Admiral. Krex stood in his war room, watching the displays with satisfaction. 40 systems under Vexen control. Their technology was supreme, their military unmatched. Sir, his aide entered. The humans have left the system. Good. Primitive species need to know their place. Krex turned to his tactical display. What? About the rebels in Sector 7? Contained, sir. They tried using nuclear weapons. The aide's mandibles clicked in amusement. Our shields didn't even warm up. This is why we rule, Krex said. We've evolved beyond crude violence. We've mastered energy itself. These younger races still think in terms of metal and chemistry. They don't understand true power. He walked to his window, looking out at the assembled fleet. Hundreds of ships, each capable of destroying planets. This was real might. Not the humans with their bullets and bombs. On Earth, General Tom stood before the World Council. Leaders from every nation watched him through screens and in person. If this fails, the President said, they'll exterminate us. If we do nothing, Tom replied, we'll never be more than servants in their empire. We need respect, not pity. 1 bullet, the Russian delegate said. You're betting our species on 1 bullet? 1 perfectly placed bullet Tom corrected. Humans didn't conquer Earth with the strongest claws or biggest teeth. We did it with intelligence, patience, and precision. Now we show the galaxy those same skills. The Chinese representative leaned forward. And if the shot misses? Then we learn what it's like to be truly alone in the universe. Mike checked. His rifle for the 100th time. Everything perfect. The round was special depleted uranium core, ceramic shell to survive the journey, nano-etched to be perfectly smooth. It would travel slower than any weapon the Vexans expected, arriving like a ghost from the dark. His timer counted down. 52 hours. His breathing was calm, meditative. Snipers knew how to wait. It was their greatest skill. The galaxy was about to learn why humans feared the patient hunter more than the roaring predator. Asterisk. 53 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds had passed. Mike's finger rested on the trigger. His heartbeat slowed to almost nothing. Between beats, in that perfect stillness, he squeezed. The rifle made no sound in the vacuum. A small puff of gas exited the barrel, and the bullet began its long journey. Mike watched it disappear into the darkness, then activated his emergency beacon. His job was done. Now came the waiting. The bullet drifted through space at a mere 3,000 meters per second, laughably slow by galactic standards. Laser weapons traveled at the speed of light. Plasma bolts crossed systems in minutes. This piece of metal would take 19 hours to reach its target. That was the beauty of it. Admiral Krex woke on parade day feeling invincible. He put on his ceremonial armor, each piece worth more than a human city. His personal shields could withstand a direct hit from a star destroyer. He was untouchable. "Sir, final security sweep complete," his guard captain reported. "All energy weapons detected and neutralized. Shield grid operating at maximum." Good. Today, the galaxy sees Vexen strength. The parade ground filled with millions of beings. Ships hung in formation above, creating shadows that covered continents. Every major news network in the Empire broadcasted live. This was Krex's moment of glory. He walked to the podium, chest swelling with pride. The crowd roared approval. Here stood the admiral who had crushed the Bone Raiders, who had brought the crystalline collective to heel. Unstoppable, unbeatable. "Citizens of the Empire," Krex began, his voice carried across space by quantum transmitters. "Today, we celebrate 40 systems united under Vexen rule. We have brought order to chaos, civilization to savagery. 8 million kilometers away, the bullet continued its journey. It had passed through 3 meteor fields, using their gravity to make micro-adjustments. It spun at exactly the right rate to stay stable, silent, invisible, inevitable. Some question our methods, Krex continued. Some say we are too harsh with primitive species. But look at the humans. They came to us with chemical weapons and metal projectiles." The crowd laughed. Should we pretend such toys are threats? Should we lower ourselves to their level? Rita watched from Earth's command center. The entire human leadership was gathered. On screen, Admiral Krex looked invincible, a god among mortals. General Tom stood perfectly still, watching the corner of the screen where a small timer counted down. 3 minutes. "We offered the humans trade rights," Krex said. "We were generous. They should thank us for not conquering them immediately. Perhaps one day, when they discover real technology, they can join us as equals. But that day is centuries away." 2 minutes. Mike had been picked up by a stealth recovery ship 12 hours ago. He sat in the medical bay, wrapped in thermal blankets, watching the same broadcast. His hands were steady. A sniper's hands were always steady. "Our shields protect us from any energy weapon," Krex boasted. "Our armor deflects antimatter itself. We have evolved beyond physical violence." We are. 1 minute. The bullet entered the parade ground space. Too small for sensors designed to catch ships. Too slow to trigger shields calibrated for light-speed attacks. It was just a piece of metal, drifting like space debris. Untouchable. Undefeated, the bullet hit exactly where Mike had aimed. Not at Krex's head, that was protected by personal shields. Not at his chest, that was covered in armor. It hit the one spot every sniper knew to look for, the tiny gap where the helmet met the neck armor. A space less than 2 centimeters wide, the ceramic shell shattered on impact. The uranium core, still traveling at tremendous speed, punched through soft tissue. Admiral Krex, conqueror of 40 systems, fell forward onto his podium. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The greatest military leader in the galaxy couldn't have been shot. It was impossible. The shields were up. The scanners were active. Nothing could have gotten through. Then chaos erupted. Guards swarmed the stage. Medical teams rushed forward. The broadcast cut to emergency signals. Across the Empire, billions of beings watched in shock as the impossible played out before them. Admiral Krex, the untouchable, had been touched. In Earth's command center. Nobody celebrated. They watched in grim silence as alien news networks scrambled to understand what had happened. Then, General Tom activated a broadcast on all galactic frequencies. This is Earth Command. We take responsibility for the demonstration. Admiral Krex. Lives our shooter aimed to wound, not kill. Consider this our military application. We await your response. The message was clear. We could have killed him, but we chose not to. The Vexen Empire had the best medical technology in the galaxy. Within minutes, Admiral Krex was stabilized. The bullet had passed through his shoulder, missing vital organs by millimeters, exactly as intended. As nanosurgeons repaired the damage, Krex's mind raced with one question. How? In the emergency council meeting, chaos reigned. Representatives from 40 systems shouted over each other. The gel delegate quivered in panic. The thorns rattled their spikes in anger. Everyone wanted answers. Silence. Vice Admiral Torm commanded. Computer, show us the replay. Full spectrum analysis. They watched the footage a dozen times. Enhanced. Slowed. Every scanner. Every wavelength. Nothing. One moment Krex was speaking. The next he was falling. No energy signature. No antimatter trace. Nothing their technology could detect. It's impossible, a scientist said. Nothing travels that slow in combat. Nothing could take that long to arrive without being detected. Unless another scientist spoke up, tentacles waving nervously. Someone fired it before the parade. Long before. The room fell silent. The implications were staggering. Calculate, Torn ordered. If it was a projectile, how long would it take to travel from outside our sensor range? 19 hours, sir. The shooter would have to fire before we even announced the Admiral's exact position. That's impossible. They'd have to predict where. He'd be standing, account for every gravitational influence, every micro-movement of the station. The calculations alone would take. A human could do it. The voice came from Dr. Zen, the Empire's xenobiologist. I've studied their history. They've been making these calculations since they hunted with thrown spears. They call it leading the target. What seems impossible to us is instinct to them. On Earth, messages flooded in from across the galaxy. Some condemned the attack. Others, surprisingly, praised it. The smaller species, those bullied by the Empire, secretly celebrated. David had wounded Goliath. Rita returned to the Vexen capital, this time with a different reception. No laughter, no mockery. Guards watched her with something new in their eyes. Wariness. Admiral Krex met her in his medical chamber. His arm was in a regeneration field, healing rapidly. But his pride would take longer to recover. One shooter, he said without preamble. One primitive rifle. 19 hours of flight time. How? Patience, Rita replied simply. Humans evolved as persistence. Hunters. We'd wound prey and follow it for days until it collapsed. We learned to think in long time scales, to plan attacks days in advance. Your technology is nothing special. No, Rita agreed. But our ability to use simple tools in complex ways. That's our edge. You've forgotten what it's like to be vulnerable, Admiral. Your shields stop energy weapons, so nobody uses kinetic weapons anymore. You solved yesterday's problem so well, you forgot it existed. Krex's mandibles clicked in frustration. We could destroy Earth in seconds. Yes, Rita said calmly. But how many of your leaders would die first? How many bullets are already traveling through space, fired days ago, aimed at targets we've already chosen? Can you protect everyone everywhere from something you can't detect? It was a bluff, mostly. Earth had only managed one such shot. But Krex didn't know that. What do you want? He asked what we always wanted. Military alliance status. Recognition as equals. Equals? Krex scoffed, then winced as his shoulder moved. You have one trick. We have thousands of years of tricks, Rita corrected. Ambushes, camouflage, psychological warfare, guerrilla tactics. You've been fighting with overwhelming force for so long, you've forgotten how to fight smart. She pulled out a data pad. Here's our proposal. Human tactical advisors for your military. We'll teach you what you've forgotten, how to fight when you can't rely on superior technology. In exchange, you share your energy weapon technology with us. Krex looked at the data pad, then at his injured shoulder. One bullet had done what 40 rebel systems couldn't made him feel mortal. I'll present it to the council, he said finally, as Rita left, she heard him ask his aide, double-check our archives. How many human conflicts have they won with inferior technology? The aide's response made her smile. Sir ... Almost all of them. Back on Earth, Mike received a hero's welcome. But when reporters asked him about the shot, he shrugged. 19 hours are 19 seconds. A target's a target. Distance is just math. The galaxy had learned its first lesson. About humans. Never underestimate a species that survived by throwing pointy sticks at things bigger than themselves. Asterisk. 6 months later, the Galactic Military Academy's newest instructor walked into a classroom filled with the Empire's elite soldiers. The beings present could each destroy a building with their standard weapons. They looked at the human instructor with barely hidden disdain. I'm Sergeant Mike, he said, placing an ancient rifle on the desk. Today, you learn to fight like humans. A Vexen warrior raised his hand. We've seen your demonstration. One lucky shot doesn't make you warriors. Mike smiled. Computer, display Earth's military history. A hologram showed hundreds of battles. Thermopylae, where 300 held off thousands. Stalingrad, where a city's ruins became a fortress. Vietnam, where farmers defeated a superpower. Afghanistan, where empires went to die. Every one of these, Mike said, was won by the technologically inferior force. Want to know how? For the first time, the elite soldiers leaned forward. Meanwhile, Admiral Krex stood before the Empire's War Council. His shoulder had healed completely, but he kept the scar a reminder. On the tactical display, a new threat emerged, a swarm collective from beyond the galactic rim. Billions of bioships, resistant to energy weapons. Our plasma cannons barely scratch them, Vice Admiral Torn reported. Their organic shields adapt too quickly. What about the human solution? Krex asked. You mean ... kinetic weapons? Torn's voice carried disbelief. Contact Earth Command. Tell them we need advisors. Many advisors. Within days, human tactical teams spread throughout the Empire's fleet. They brought crates of primitive weapons-modified railguns, tungsten, rods, even chemical explosives. The Vexen engineers were horrified. This is ancient technology. One protested to Rita, now Earth's military liaison. Ancient doesn't mean ineffective, she replied. Your enemies prepared for your energy weapons. Nobody prepares for a rock thrown at relativistic speeds. The first battle against the swarm proved her right. The bioship's organic shields evolved to disperse energy, crumpled under kinetic bombardment. Tungsten rods punched through their hulls like needles through paper. Chemical weapons that would bounce off Vexen shields ate through organic material. The Empire won in 3 hours. It should have taken 3 days. At the victory celebration, Krex stood beside General Tom. Your species spent thousands of years perfecting violence with limited resources. We prefer to say we're creative problem solvers, Tom replied diplomatically. I've been thinking, Krex said. Why did your sniper wound me instead of kill me? Tom was quiet for a moment. Dead martyrs create wars. Wounded leaders create wisdom. We didn't want to fight the Empire. We wanted to join it. Krex's mandibles clicked, the Vexen equivalent of a chuckle. One bullet changed the galaxy's destiny. No, Tom corrected. One bullet revealed what was always true. Every species brings something unique. You brought energy mastery. The gel brought biological adaptation. The thorns brought defensive technology. Humans? We brought the reminder that in war, simple solutions often beat complex ones. A year later, the Galactic Military Academy's graduation ceremony looked different. Beside plasma weaponry and shield mechanics, cadets now studied ambush tactics and ballistic calculations. The motto above the door had changed too. Where once it read, "Superior technology ensures victory," it now said, "Victory belongs to the adaptable." Mike stood in the audience, watching his students graduate. A young Vexen approached him, Krex's own son. "Instructor Mike," the youth said, "I've mastered energy weapons and shield technology. Why did my father insist I study your primitive methods?" Mike pulled out a small rock from his pocket. "Catch." He tossed it gently. The young Vexen's personal shield flared to life, trying to stop a threat that wasn't there. The rock, moving too slowly to trigger the defense properly, bounced off his head. "That's why," Mike said. "The moment you think you're invulnerable is the moment someone throws a rock at your head." Humans never forgot that lesson. Now, neither will you. News came from the frontier. A new threat had emerged, beings of pure energy immune to both kinetic and traditional weapons. The War Council convened, with humans now holding permanent seats. How do we fight beings made of energy? Torn asked. Rita and Tom exchanged glances. On Earth, Rita said, we have something called a Faraday cage. The Vexens listened intently. They'd learned the most important lesson. Humans might not have the best technology, but they'd spent their entire evolution finding ways to kill things that shouldn't be killable. And in a dangerous galaxy, that was the most valuable skill of all. Epilogue years later, historians would mark the sniper shot as the turning point in galactic history. Not because it wounded an admiral, but because it wounded an idea that technology alone determined strength. The real revolution was quieter. Human instructors teaching patience to warriors who'd forgotten how to wait, strategy to soldiers who'd relied on strength, and the simple truth that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Earth never became the Empire's strongest member, but it became the most respected, because everyone knew, give a human a problem, any problem, and they'd find a way to solve it. Usually with something surprisingly simple and devastatingly effective.